Alright guys, TacticalRab back again today. Hope you're all doing well and enjoying your day so far. With the World Championship just around the corner, the events of Rostermania are going to depend massively on what results we see in Vegas in a couple of weeks' time. If neither FaZe nor LA Thieves go on to win the event, could we potentially see trades between these organizations? Ake says, look, no matter what you think about LA Thieves, no matter which of those players want to stay on the roster, if you're offered a trade with FaZe, you go for it, especially because Rostermania could get very hectic given the contract situations we find ourselves in. Very much intrigued to hear your thoughts in the comments. Hit the like button if you enjoy. Subscribe if you're new as always. I'd greatly appreciate it. Haggy's at it again. I know that they were just joking around here, right? And it was pretty funny. I thought this about you, to be fair, but still, nonetheless, good enough to mention. There was this also from Nameless, so he was at the golf here, and we know that John Rahm is a part owner of Octane Esports and is, related in some respects to Boston Breach, but he's also an OpTic fan, to our understanding, right? Because he mentioned that he was watching, I think it was during 2021 before he won the US Open, was it? That he was watching like a replay of OpTic Chicago's game the night before. So Nameless tries to say to him, hey, like, let's go Boston Breach or whatever. And John Rahm just obviously doesn't hear him or completely blanks him or something like that. It was pretty funny, to be fair. There was also, just to mention, because last night we talked about Scump's perspective on the OpTic run at the World Championship, saying, oh yeah, they're going to beat Boston hands down. No problem at all. Should be an easy dub. And people have said, oh, Scump's, he's too much of a jinx, right? Now, he did actually say on stream not long ago, I mean, this is shortly before Space Station Gaming beat the OpTic guys. He was like, yeah, here we go. We're going for the back-to-back, right, championships for the OpTic Halo team. You know, there's absolutely no doubt about it in his mind. They're going to win 100%. And then turns out, and he was like, yeah, the jinx doesn't exist. It's not real. And then, of course, they lost. Now, do you read into this that if Scump says they're going to win, it's not going to happen and it's an absolute shambles? Maybe, maybe not, but we'll see. He's very confident in OpTic Texas to do well at Champs, but yeah, if they lose to Boston, it's not going to be pretty. The favourites for the event, you've probably got to say, are FaZe. I think it's quite difficult to say between the couple of teams because obviously New York just did win the previous event, but FaZe were there in the finals. I think maybe if you'd have run that finals 10 times, FaZe might have won 6 of them because I think their control was significantly better, their respawn was marginally better, and their search and destroy, I think they just had a bit of an off series in that, to be honest, and if you'd have run that series 10 times, they probably win more than they lose, but who knows, right? I mean, New York played incredibly well. That Hydra Kismet duo, I remember at the start of the season there was talk about it, and I'll just share this on the big screen actually here, because aBeZy was completely frying, and this is other pros, this is in 8, right? This is not like, he's not playing pubs here, not playing amateur players, like these are legit pro players. aBeZy is just stomping on. We know how good this guy is. Might not win the MVP though anymore with Hydra there, but Hydra and Kiz, of the last 8 tournaments, I think they've been in 4 of the grand finals, have they not? And they've won 3 of them. That's going back to the Pro-Am last year. They made the finals there. They made the finals at Major 4 after that as well. And since then, they've made 2 more finals, and they've won both of them. So I think it's really impressive to actually think about that. The Hydra and Kismet, as a duo, have been, they've been in 50% of the last 8 grand finals. It's quite the story. So maybe they're the favourites. Maybe it's FaZe. Their respawn looks significantly improved. They looked kind of unstoppable, actually, until they did play subliners in the final, who just played super well in the search and destroy on that particular day. But you'd expect FaZe's search to be a bit better come the World Championship, bit of regression to the mean, or whatever you want to say on that side. Maybe the same on the other way around in hardpoint. So really difficult to call. There's probably 5 teams that can win the event. We know OpTic are capable of it. LA Thieves, I think they're certainly not favourites. They didn't have a great run at Major 5. They did, though, win last year's World Championship with the same roster, so you can never count them out. Toronto, I'm not quite sure they've got the slaying power, but their control is incredibly good, and it obviously can be done on OpTic. You kind of don't know what you're going to get from OpTic right now, but it's certainly possible. So to me, 5 teams that can win. Obviously, all the teams are grinding right now. We've got Drazah playing Pro S&D8s like every day, putting in maximum possible time, even as Dashy says here, like nothing like a bot free-fall session while bumping some tunes. Priester agrees. So, these guys obviously going hard as well. And then Hydra, you can never count him out, as he secured after the result at Major 5, the highest S&D KD of the season with a 1.30. Pretty incredible, actually. I think Pred can't have been too far away from this, but he had a 1.74 or something over the entirety of Stage 5, so that brought him up to an overall 1.3, and that was enough to secure him this accolade. But last year, there were big questions after the World Championship concluded, after Arcitys and FaZe had got another second place, whether they would decide to go down a different route, and many people said, oh no, FaZe should stick it out, they're still good enough, but they didn't, right? They want to win more. They thought that they could win more by making a change change? Has their team got better? There's a debate on that. They have won an event though this season. They did it last year. They made, what, 3 grand finals now, FaZe. So they made 3 finals. They've won 1 tournament. They'll feel like they should have won 2. But I think they'll probably feel pretty satisfied with the change they made in the off-season, looking back at it, especially given what Arcitys did this season and the frustrations that he had with how things were going. What's going to happen though this off-season depends massively on champs. If FaZe had won champs last year, you'd imagine they'd still be the same team. They lost in the finals though to Thieves. Thieves therefore stuck it out. But again, if Thieves don't win this World Championship, will they make a change? These are the debates that are going down. Octane gives his thoughts on which teams should win, who are the favourites. He seems to maybe be leaning the FaZe way, but still, he reckons that there's like 5, maybe even 6 teams that can win this event. And whoever doesn't win this event, I'd expect to make a change.
Favorites to win champs on paper. Oh god. Oh god. FaZe seem to have massively improved the respawns at the perfect time. Most confidence in their S&D. LAT defending world champions. Didn't have enough time to finish their issues. Issues? Whatever could you talking about? New York, only team to win 2 majors. Say they won't carry momentum major 5 in the champs. Reasonable takes. Everyone except Rokkr, Boston, and Seattle have a realistic chance of winning it. Kind of. Yeah. No. Yeah. I feel like this is the majority of like public sentiment. Dude, anyone could win champs, and I would be like, yeah. There's like, barring like maybe Boston and like Minnesota. Even if Seattle won that shit, I could just be like, they got hot. You know what I mean? I don't know, dude. I feel like this is the most. I talked about it a little bit the other day on stream, but I feel like this is the most even champs has ever been. Because going into champs, there have been overwhelming favorites the majority of the time. And this event, literally anyone could win it, and I would be like, yeah, it makes sense. Yeah, absolutely. Like OpTic had a shit weekend. They could come out and just play how they like did it the last 2 events prior to Major 5, and we could win it. I mean, FaZe, they got second. New York could win it. Toronto could win it. Like, bro, there's so many different teams that could just come out and slam and wouldn't be surprised whatsoever. Which I don't know what that says about the game. I don't know whether that's like a competition thing or the game being dog shit. But
Octane's different. I mean, he's been good for them.
I don't think he would. Octane, bro, I've said this before. When people are like, yo, Octane should join this and this. Bro, listen, as much as I think, him joining certain teams, he is literally, him and like Kenny are their franchise players. I don't think those guys go anywhere for the entire rest of their careers. No bullshit. That team, that organization would literally just ask them, who do you want, and go after them.
Yeah, I don't think you would do it.
Because you're saying, oh, you would trade something. He would not. I promise you, he won't.
But then he's drunk.
No, I agree with Chris. Like, as nasty of a player MC is, I just don't think for how the Thieves structure the camp, I just don't see them kind of letting. They wouldn't do that kind of swap. Now, draws and MC is a different conversation, but I think for that, no. I just think for Nade, this is just unfortunately a case of, like, I think there's a debate to be had based on his gameplay from earlier this season.
Are y'all drunk?
In what way?
Like, you could pick Simp or aBeZy. You could pick either one. If Atlanta FaZe said, "Yo, we'll give you Cell for Octane," if I'm 100T, done. Tell me where to sign.
Yeah, but
same for Simp for Kenny, done. Tell me where to sign. aBeZy for Kenny, done. Tell me where to sign. Package deal, 2 for 2, done.
So Wake's giving his perspective there on the LA Thieves FaZe situation, because it's very possible that even the New York Subliners, they just won the most recent event, they come in and win this event again. They're not the favourites by the bookies odds or anything, but they could well do so. And if Subliners were to win, what do the other teams decide to do? Could we even get a world in which the likes of Cellium, Simp, and aBeZy, that trio, actually break up? I think it's very unlikely as it stands. There was a brief period a couple of months ago where FaZe was struggling, where I thought, you know what, could aBeZy and Simp decide to go their separate ways if Simp doesn't turn up at the end of the year? But he kind of has turned up at the end of the year. So I think that has kind of put that to bed somewhat, that if FaZe were to make a change, you would think that it would be Slasher to make way, but I'm still not exactly clear who you'd replace Slasher with that actually improves that squad and does what Slasher has done for their team. So that's a big question to me, but honestly, the biggest debate is about Los Angeles Thieves this offseason, because I'm not sure what they're going to do. Many would say, oh, they won an event back at Major 4, they're going to stick it out, but they had a terrible run in the Major 5 qualifiers. I mean, how many teams are there in COD history that have lasted more than 2 seasons? There's not many at all. There's the OpTic Dynasty, and you're then running very thin on the ground. Maybe the FaZe team throughout the Jetpack era. But outside of that, there's not many teams that have lasted more than 2 seasons together in a row. And maybe that'll change over time. Maybe we see more longer-term teams. But I think it's unlikely, as it stands, that Thieves turn up to the start of next season with the same roster again. Not necessarily because they don't believe in each other or they don't think this team could work. They literally won an event a month and a bit ago at this point. I think it's mainly due to the contracts. Their contracts now are all at an end. We know that Esports is in a tough spot. The likes of many of these organizations, the Rokkrs, the Surges, etc., that paid a lot of money over the last few years, they will look to bring those salaries down, I believe, this season, and Thieves might be among them. We believe they actually had to take a pay cut last season in order to reform this roster. That was the rumor that was going around a while ago from Clayster, that they had actually taken a salary cut to keep this roster together, and that might be necessary again. Thieves are making some layoffs, you know, they've got to think about their bottom line, so that might be what we see again. And maybe if, let's say, an OpTic team or another team, a FaZe, a Subliners, or even a Toronto, who knows, Surge comes along to Envoy and says, hey, you know, maybe Huke doesn't work out, maybe Pred goes to FaZe, I don't know what's going to happen, and OpTic say, you know what, Envoy, come back to the green wall. Is he going to do so? Well, he certainly can. He's an absolute free agent. There's nothing tying him to this franchise, so my expectation would be that Kenny and Octane would stay. I would be surprised if they were to depart. They are integral to the Thieves branding. Octane, I think, has made the point that he never wants to play for another organization but Thieves, so I think he's going to stay. If you're Akes, though, and he says, look, if Cellium is offered as a trade, if Simp or aBeZy are offered as a trade and FaZe decide, you know what, this isn't working, we've got to blow it up a little bit, do you take all of those trades if you're Thieves? Maybe you well do, maybe you don't. What happens with Drazah? I don't know. I rate Drazah very highly, not sure what's going to happen there, but I think there's a good chance that other organizations try and poach some of these Thieves players away. They're all unrestricted free agents. They might not get offered anything crazy as a salary-wise on Thieves, and other organizations might decide, you know what, let's try and get that player onto our team. The likes of an Envoy, the likes of a Drazah could be great versatile assets for many rosters. And I also heard at the major, I don't know if I just had a few too many drinks, I'm completely making this up, but I heard that there was, if Thieves didn't win champs last year, they were going to make a change, is what I heard at the time. So hearing that, and obviously going into this year's World Championship with them far from the favourites to win, you would think, especially given the contract situation now is more volatile than it was then, that if they don't win now, then that situation would also apply. I've also thought for some time that from a personality perspective, I like Envoy, I think he's a great guy, but watching their content and stuff, I'm not always sure that he meshes super well from a personality perspective with Kenny, Drazah and Octane, who seem to be more similar in some respects. Not that that's a bad thing for the team, but I just feel like if there's some odd man out, it might be Envoy in this situation, so we'll see what happens. But this is not just being started from Thieves or from FaZe or from OpTic or wherever, right? We've got all these unrestricted free agents, the entire team on Vegas, the entire Seattle Surge team, including Pred and Civ, all of the Thieves guys, Dashy, apparently iLLeY as well, like these will all need to sign new contracts. I imagine Kismet will be re-signs, plenty of these other players such as FaZe will be re-signs, but still, with this many unrestricted free agents that could go anywhere, there's so much potential for, you know, someone big to sign a Pred or to sign a Civ, and then all of a sudden there's a big other name player on the market, and now Thieves are thinking, well, we didn't win, this player's getting offered this amount to go here, and then they make a change. So I think it's more likely than not right now that Thieves do make a move. I can see 11 teams making changes after champs this year, but very much enjoyed to hear your thoughts on it in the comment section below. Just one final thing to close out here. The most series won at COD Champs all time is as follows. So Kremp has won 45 series at champs, Scump's won 44, Jacob at 43, then Clayster at 39, unfortunately not at this year's champs, Slasher though at 38. So Slasher can eclipse Clay this tourney if he wins a couple more series, and Slasher is honestly the only one, at least as far as I'm concerned, that can really try and beat Kremp record here over the next couple of years. Slasher could still compete for another, 3-4 years possibly. So, he could potentially be targeting this record. It's not really much of a record that people care much about, but it's still an interesting record. We scroll further down here, we find Attach at 31, Series 1, then Arcitys at 28. Of course, back in the day, you'd win series in groups, so, it's obviously a bit skewed. Nowadays, you can win the tourney in 4 series. So Slasher could win the whole thing and only be like 4th on this list, but still, it could happen. And then we get down to Priester and Octane, for example, here. Obviously, the players that are appearing here are players that plays back in the CWL days, because since then, things have changed quite substantially. But very much enjoyed your thoughts and all this stuff in the comment section below. Hit the like button if you enjoyed, subscribe if you're new, take care, and I'll see you next time.